So the first of these talks is between Sanjana Govindan, GM Bangalore chapter of SVP, and Anu Sridharan of A-Tree. Let me share a bit about A-Tree, or Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment. It's one of the top environmental think tanks in India. Was established in 1996 as a research organization. Its mission is to generate rigorous interdisciplinary knowledge for achieving environmental conservation and sustainable development, and also to enable the use of this knowledge by policymakers and society. And finally, their aim is also to train the next generation of environmental leaders. The A-Tree engages actively with academia, policymakers, practitioners, activists, students, and even wider public audiences. The SVP Bangalore chapter has been working with A-Tree on projects of forest conservation in the Western Ghats that provide livelihoods. The aim is to augment the income and create a sustainable business model. So over to Sanjana, conversing with Anushri.
Thank you, Alka. Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sanjana, the GM for SVP Bangalore. And a slight correction, so we have Veena Srinivasan, who's the director at the CSEI at A-Tree, joining us and speaking. Her colleague Anu is also on the call, and she'll be sharing information about the project. So I'll just give you a quick background before I head into questions with Veena, and then I'm going to ask her to introduce herself. But about 2 years ago, SVP Bangalore ran a fast pitch event. And it was at that time that Dr. Siddhappa, who was leading the Lantana project at A-Tree, had reached out to SVP, and our engagement began at that point. A-Tree, like Alka said, is one of the top 20 think tanks in the world and is doing cutting edge work on solving the challenge of invasive lantana by both creating a sustainable livelihood model for forest communities and also figuring out a model for what the future of innovation in that space looks like. So Veena, without much ado, Veena, can I ask you to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Firstly, thanks, Sanjana, for the opportunity to speak to this audience. It's a great pleasure to be here and listen to what others have been doing as well. I'm Veena Srinivasan. I'm the director for the newly founded Center for Social and Environmental Innovation at A-Tree, and also a senior fellow. A-Tree is an environmental think tank and a research institution, as well as an implementation institution. And my background, though, comes from research in the water sector, but we really branched out to understand how do we translate research into action. And our work with SVP actually is one of our major initiatives in that direction. So it's really exciting to be here.
Great, thanks. So Veena, what's our problem statement and how are we solving it?
So our problem statement is the problem of what I would call it. The very big problem statement is the problem of reconciling environment and development. I mean, this is fundamental to every single thing that every one of us does. It's easy to do one or the other, but it's really hard to reconcile the two. The specific problem that we are working on is the problem of lantana in the Western Ghats in India, where this is a highly invasive weed which has taken over much of the Western Ghats. And as a result, it's prevented forest regeneration, prevented some of the fruiting and flowering trees that support much of the wildlife. It prevents movement of wildlife. So on one hand, that's the environment problem. On the other hand, you have a development problem of indigenous communities that live in these landscapes that are increasingly being asked to leave. They're very, very poor communities on one hand, very low standard of living, but they're also being asked to leave these forests as they get converted into tiger reserves. So one of the problems that A-Tree has been tackling for a long time from the rights perspective is how do we get them forest rights so that they can earn decent livelihoods and they're not having to give up their traditional lifestyles entirely. And the Lantana project that I'm sure we'll talk about more emerged from that to see how can we capacity build. So the problem was how can we solve the problem of lantana, an invasive weed, while creating livelihoods for very, very marginalized communities.
So Veena, that's great. And that was the reason SVP was so excited about this, because you rarely have a congruence between an environment project and one which creates livelihoods for the most vulnerable. So in many senses, you feel like A-Tree feels like a first of its kind model. So what are some of the other innovations that we can hope to see from the Lantana project? and your collaboration with SVP?
Right. So the first thing I should say is that we've been working on this problem for a long time. A3's work in LATANA has almost been on for a decade, and they've been helping the tribals build capacity and learn how to harvest the lantana, just the physics of how do you work with this, the mechanics of it. But what we realized a few years ago is, firstly, that it's not a scalable business when you set it up as an NGO and a tribal cooperative. So the first thing that we're working on with SVP on is just how do we build a business around it? How do we create a social enterprise, create the market linkages, and ensure that you actually, and these products get to scale. Now, the second thing is that the kinds of products that they were making, I would say, were very relatively low value products. And initially when we started, and it's the kind of, the bamboo looking furniture that you might find on the Indian street side. But what we realized a few years ago in collaboration with Solar Trust and the Elephant Family in the UK, where they commissioned these really, really beautiful life-size elephants from the tribal community. And that's what I was hoping Anu would post some links to, because seeing those pictures completely changes your mind. Because when you see those products, you realize that really, talent is everywhere and opportunity is not. And if they could make those elephants and that look that good, why couldn't they make high value products? Of course, there's only so many elephants you can sell, life-size elephants you can sell. And so why can't they make other high value products? And so the second piece of what we are doing with SVP is how can we improve the design, bring in really high-end designers, use the kinds of talents and skills they already have in the elephant building projects to see if they can produce a wider range of products which are more high value.
That's great. So over the past 12 months, it has been SVP's privilege to work with such a fantastic team at A3, you, Anu, Sandeep, Siddhapa, and we've learned a ton and we've asked a ton of questions, and that's been part of our learning process. We've also discovered funding for this space is really complicated and hard. So if you had to have a magic wand, what would you say to encourage donors to fund activities and fund projects in the environment and livelihood space?
So one of the biggest challenges we have is, of course, at the end of this, we want it to be a market-based enterprise. We do want to create livelihoods where it's not endlessly donor funded. I mean, that's not a sensible model. However, if it was that easy to get money and communities to just magically skill build, learn how to run businesses, do all of that, that would have happened on its own. And so you need a very interesting combination of investor funds, which is going to help with the whole range of working capital, sheds, the kind of stuff that you need to set up a business. You also need pure foundation funding for something that the business is not ultimately going to support, which is for the capacity building, some of the thinking, conceptualization, and design. And I think sometimes it's hard to do just one and not the other. You kind of need a combination of both. We are very grateful to SVP for actually, on one hand, giving us the philanthropic side of the funding as a seed funding, and also giving us the connections that we need to designers and so on. So I think the third thing that we need is just in-kind support. And SVP has been incredibly useful in that respect, connecting us to designers, connecting us to buyers, helping us set up workshops so that we can actually make these connections. So I think all three of those, but any one alone will not work.
So before we close, any parting comments about what you think the lantana and forest entrepreneur landscape, I wouldn't like to call them forest communities, would look like in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I sincerely hope that in the next 3 to 5 years, with SVP's help, firstly, we are able to move from the low-end design through to something that we believe these communities are capable of executing on, which is really beautiful high-end products that you and me and every one of us in this room wants to have in their house. The second thing I hope is that we'll be able to set it up as a business so that we've got the working capital and we've got the logistics and operations piece worked out. Right now, it's all bespoke. Each piece needs to be done as a special order, and then they get the money and then they pay the tribals and then do it. That's obviously not a sensible way of working. And so I hope we get the logistics and the working capital and the funding for the investment side. So I think those are the, and then the third part is, of course, creating the market and building the linkages with some of the big buyers. So these are the three big pieces that I hope to address, which is the capacity on one side, the finances and operations, logistics on one, and then the market side on the other. And I hope if we can fix these, we can create the livelihoods and impact that we hope to have.
So just a final note, do you anticipate a ton of government support, or is that something that you're leaving out at the moment?
No, we are, and there are, to be fair, government MSME schemes. What I would say about the government MSME schemes is they are restrictive, and in some sense, they're kind of complementary to what we get. They often will not pay for stuff like high-end designers. What they will pay for is they'll probably pay for lathes and for machinery and for sheds. And so we are definitely looking for high-end, we're definitely looking for government MSME grants. I don't think it's going to be a replacement. It actually will cover stuff that the philanthropy funding usually doesn't touch.
That's great. So thank you so much, Veena. And Anu's posted a bunch of links. Please take a look at the work. We've had the extraordinary opportunity to work with this fantastic team, and we've learned a ton. Everyone on the call, of course, I'm shamelessly asking to support A3's work and take it to the next level. Thanks. Over to you, Alka.
Thank you, Sanjana. That was really a lovely discussion. Our next talk is between Arshia Meklai, GM SVP Mumbai chapter, and Sonali Saini, the founder of Souls Arc. Souls Arc is a registered charitable trust working towards transforming education with a vision of no one left behind. Their mission is to universalize educational opportunities for all individuals in India, and their goal is to create a scalable, replicable model to reach every last child. They build inclusive learning solutions from education to employment to improve learning and employment outcomes for the most vulnerable children in India. They have developed a unique framework that makes the national curriculum inclusive and accessible for individuals with learning lags, right from preschool to higher education. Sonali Saini, the founder chairperson of Souls Arc, is a special educator and has served on various government, NGO, national and international committees on inclusive education. So over to you, Arshia and Sonali.
Thank you. Good morning, Arshia.
Thank you, Alka, for the introduction. Good morning to all, and Sonali, of course. Great to have you all on board. Would love to share, have Sonali share the story of Souls Arc with all of you today. So just a couple of questions for you, Sonali, to get you started. Well, firstly, of course, I'd like you to tell all of us here a little bit about yourself personally. How is it that you got started with Souls Arc, and how did that whole process begin?
Thank you, Arshia. It's a great honor to be on this platform. I've been hearing the wonderful speakers since morning and been very, very inspired, in these difficult times that we are all facing. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I think Alka has already introduced me as a special educator. That's my background. I'm a social entrepreneur. I founded Souls Arc in 2003. I think personally for me, it's been it's been my life's mission to really look at inclusion and how we can really scale, replicate inclusion models in India and enable vulnerable children who are being left behind today within the system.
Great. So what is, in depth, if you can tell us, what is the problem exactly that Souls Arc is trying to solve, and how is it that it has been solved so far?
So I think the key problem, and I think all of us are aware of this, that what we are trying to actually do. I mean, if you look at the system, if you look at the education system, if you look at the community at large, we are still a non-inclusive society. So what are those pillars? What are those issues that we need to target or we need to resolve so that our community or our education system at large becomes inclusive, and in such a way that the solutions are not just bifurcated for individuals with disabilities or individuals with other vulnerable conditions, but become a part of your everyday learning. A teacher should not have to have special strategies or special ways in which she teaches one child in a classroom. That's never going to work in a vast country like India. How do you build solutions so that a teacher is able to teach inclusively in your whole class? And that's really what what we are trying to resolve. So there are three key problems that we are trying to solve and three key solutions that we are trying to build around those. So number one, more than 50% of the children are not at grade level. Again, the huge belief that we have is because the system is inclusive, is not inclusive, and we don't really have look at diversity of the classroom. That's one of the reasons children lag behind. 1 in 2 children are at risk for either disability, mental health issues, or abuse, but go unidentified. Less than 1% of them really get identified or even get an intervention. The third problem is young adults, especially young adults with disabilities, especially with autism and intellectual disabilities, are not a part of the open workforce and not employed today at all. That's a large percent of the population. How do we include them in the open workforce? So these are the three key problems that we are building solutions around.
Super, thank you. If you could just tell the audience which geographies you are present in and the strength of your organization in terms of the people, and also how many students and how many teachers have you impacted so far?
Sure. As an organization, we work with NGOs as well as with the government. One of the things that, so our partnerships with NGOs like Educate Girls, Teach for India, where we provide or we help organizations build an inclusive pedagogy. And those are the programs that we have scaled in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. We now work directly with 2 state governments. One is with Madhya Pradesh and the other one is with Tamil Nadu. So Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, MP are the regions that we work in currently. We're a very small team. We're just a team of about 30 people. We have what we call a lab center, where wonderful set of young adults that we work with directly even now, because that's really where we learn everything that we need to. We build solutions. We work with them to understand how these solutions are really working, and I think the joy of working with this population is very, very different, and that's something that Solzak holds very, very dear to.
And how many students and teachers have you collectively worked with so far, do you think?
About 2 students that we've worked through to impacted so far through the learning outcomes that we work with, and about 50,000 teachers that we've worked with directly and indirectly in various regions.
That's fabulous. And what I love about Solzak and you especially is that, you really thought through the model. You have brought in government, you have brought in other NGOs to collaborate with. I think this is a collaboration model which is really, truly worth speaking about. If you'd like to say a few words on that, actually, what made you think about bringing everyone together? Was it difficult? Was it easy?
I think, the realization that you're not going to be able to solve a problem at this scale on your own is very, very apparent, I think, to all of us. And I think just to accept that we can't do this alone. And if you want to create large scale sectorial impact, I think that really, and our focus shifted from an organizational impact to sectorial impact just about 5 years ago, where we said that everything that we are doing within our centers, whatever we are doing, is not sufficient for the population that we are working with to get integrated in the society. So what is the point of what we are doing? Are we really building solutions that is going to give a better future for them? Or are we just assuming that my role stops here and there's nothing beyond this that I'm responsible for? If children complete their 8th standard, children with disabilities, with autism, developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, if they're able to complete their 10th standard and if there is no option for them moving ahead, what is the point of all the investment that we've put for so many years? And that's really when we understood that we alone cannot solve this problem. We need to look at all the stakeholders within the system, figure out what is it that we can do to build or to engage. So our strategy in the initial years has always been influence the influencers. Who are the people in the system who are going to be able to influence and promote inclusion? Because we as an organization alone are never going to be able to do it. So we looked at the best of the people in the sector. We looked at all the influential people, from industry partners to government to sector councils, to who would actually be able to influence the community, influence the stakeholders, and actually be able to create an inclusive society, which we alone can never do. So the collaboration and the partnership is something which we value very, very heavily in Soul's Arc, and we do believe that without that, there's no scale.
That's really, really amazing. And thank you so much for that. Just one last question. Not really a question, it's really something that I would like to hear, and I'm sure the others would like to hear as well, is what is your most, what do you say, heartfelt experience that you've had in terms of, working with the students? So basically what I'm trying to ask is, what is your closest success story to your heart?
I think we're far away from the success that we envision Soul's Arc to bring. I can tell you about an incident which I think I probably said to everybody, which has really shifted the way Soul's Arc has thought of. We have a child called Sanskar who is still with us, and who was with us for a very long time. I think ever since he was 8 years old, and he has autism. We really worked with him very closely. He was a brilliant child. He was reading way ahead of his age level as compared to other children. Yes, he struggled in a few areas, but I think he's just such a brilliant student that we had. He was about to sit for his 10th standard exam, and there was a small documentary being shot on the work that we were doing that we were doing in Soul's Arc. And he was asked this question, Sanskar, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? So Sanskar is always, in all his innocence said, I want to grow up, I want to go to office, I want to get married to my wife. And, when he said this, I think, we of course all smiled about it. It's so sweet, how innocent and things like that. But when we went back, I think we realized that nothing that we do at Soul's Arc is going to enable him to even have a small dream like that. And then what's the point of our existence? What's the point of what we are doing if we're not going to create a change in his life? Getting him to pass his 10th standard and then sitting at home is not really a better future for him at all. And that's when we realized that the change doesn't have to be within Sanskar, the change has to be within the society. And many such incidences of so many children that we've had, I think, which has just pivoted our organization to where we are. So, when people talk about strategic plan and, they say that, what's your 5-year strategic plan, and how have you maneuvered your organization? Our entire organization has been maneuvered by the voices of our children. And that's really what's made the difference for us.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sonali, for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Back to you, Alka.
Thank you, Arshia. That was a wonderful conversation. Sonali, being from Mumbai chapter, always the heart is with Soul's Arc. Our next chat is between Kanupriya Agarwal, GM of the SVP Delhi chapter, and Anisha Wadhwa of Udayan Care. Udayan is a Sanskrit word meaning eternal sunrise, and Udayan Care works to empower vulnerable children, women, and youth in 23 cities across 14 states. Sorry, I think my mistake. I have jumped over and left one thing. Sorry, my mistake. The next interesting chat is between Parul Vaidya, GM of SVP Pune chapter, and Jayatai Kale, Jagriti Seva Sanstha Pune. My sincere apologies for this. Jagruti has been working at grassroots level in the slums of Pune and nearby areas in the field of education, vocational training, and healthcare for 23 years, with a special focus on women and children. It conducts various skill development programs, one of which was the very successful Nursing AIDS program. Jagruti also carries out vocational training programs, a counseling center for women to support their family and marital issues. And it also conducts programs so that women become familiar with their rights and about women's protection laws. Jayatai Kale is the managing trustee of Jagruti Seva Sanstha. She is the ex-chairperson and currently a director with Bhagini Nivedita Bank. Jayatai has a rich experience of over 25 years in the banking industry. So over to you, Parul and Jayatai.
Thank you, Alka. I must say that every time I meet Jayatai or I speak to her, it's always an inspiration. And to be able to chat with her like this, is really my pleasure, and I'm privileged to do so. So Jayatai, welcome to SVP Samvad 2020. And to begin with, what's been your story like? What's been the story of Jagruti? Because you were in the banking industry and now running Jagruti for 23 years and doing all the great work you do. How do you do that? I mean, I would love to hear the story, and I would want people to listen to your story. Can I just have you online speaking to us?
Yes, actually, my father, my mother, both of them were inclined towards social work, and they were doing it in their own manner. So it was there in the family that I have to do something for the society. And one small incident actually directed me towards this activities of Jagruti. One girl, Manisha, she was my mate's daughter. Once she brought her to my house and said she has failed in an exam in 8th standard, and I want to take her out from the school. You find out some work for her, and then next year I will get her married. Manisha was quite smart, so I felt sad for the girl, and I said, give me 1 year, and I will look after her studies and also pay for her educational expenses. And Manisha passed her SSC exam with 89% marks. Afterwards, she completed her BCom and MCom also, and now she's employed in a bank. So, and thereafter, she also ensured that her younger girls, sisters, they are get the proper education. So this, I started thinking this is important because there might be many such girls and boys who do not get the opportunities of education, and that's why the girls are married at an early age, and again their children are denied the opportunities. Boys tends towards antisocial element. So we started with educational activities and support education classes from 1st to 12th standard. I was teaching mathematics, and with this, as and when we came across the needs of the community, we started addressing them, and that's how our work expanded. Thank you.
Okay, given the situation that we are all in, the pandemic, has struck us, and we know how much healthcare is important now. We are all seeing how important it is, and you especially are doing something very interesting in the healthcare space, training of bedside assistants. How do you see this entire training program shaping up after this pandemic? We are already seeing that there's a huge need of staff in the hospitals and in the healthcare sector. How do you see this pandemic changing the entire sector, and how do you see your program changing according to this?
Because of this pandemic, as you rightly said, there is a great demand for the nursing staff. And our healthcare program, our health facilitator, we call it, because it has got more dimension than just the nursing training. It is also health awareness and spreading the health awareness in the communities and all. So at the moment, because of the pandemic, there is a great demand for this workforce, and our girls who are trained are working in many renowned hospitals and government establishments, and people are very, very happy about their work, their attitude towards the work and towards the patients. So this is one part. Secondly, our health facilitator program, the girls trained under this program, they are also spreading awareness by pamphlets and by one-to-one communication, counseling about the proper care that is to be taken during this COVID time. Our mobile clinic, our health facilitators, they also attend our mobile clinic, which goes to remote villages also. And then this spread of awareness is done by these girls. Secondly, our team of doctors, they are treating them, treating the patients, treating the extra flow of patients, because many of the clinics are closed, but Jagruti Clinic and Jagruti mobile clinic also, they are working hard and they are treating the patients with care and compassion. So one of our doctors received COVID Warrior Award for the exemplary service that he is giving.
Great. Jayata, you've been working with SVP now for almost 5 years, and this year, as you know, we're looking at expanding our program. So what do you think the relationship has been like for you? How has it been working with SVP for years now?
First, SVP is a strong supporter and an ongoing partner of Jagruti for this health facilitator program. SVP partners, they give very important inputs for the program by way of interaction with Team Jagruti. Thirdly, SVP partners, when they visit our rural and urban activities, they have dialogue, discussions with the participants and give their valuable guidance. Parul, yourself and your colleagues, they ensure that all the administrative and accounting formalities are carried forward very properly and also connect us effectively with SVP initiatives and visions. Actually, because of all this, we feel encouraged and enthused to scale up our activities in scope and size. With SVP, we have reached this far and look beyond, so a big thank you for SVP.
A big thank you to you, actually. You inspire us day in and out with all that you do. Thank you so much, Jayata, for speaking to us today. And over to you, Alka, now.
Thank you, Parul. And now the next chat is between Kanupriya Agarwal, GM of the Delhi chapter, and Anisha Wadhwa of Udyan Care. Udyan Care works to empower vulnerable children, women, and youth in 23 cities across 14 states of India. It began with a strong belief that every individual is a catalyst of change. Starting with the establishment of just one small family home called Ghar for orphaned and abandoned children, Udyan Care today nurtures over 25,000 young minds. That's what their impact has been. A thorough research on models for disadvantaged women and youth has helped them develop a lot of innovative models across all initiatives. Anisha Wadhwa supports Udyan Care in their governance, strategic expansion, resource mobilization, and communications management. She personally mentors several care leavers as well as manages a home for 12 young girls out of family care. So over to you, Kanupriya and Anisha.
Thank you, Alka. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's really my pleasure to introduce you to the partnership and the special relationship that SVP and Udyan Care have. We started our engagement with Udyan Care about 4 years back with a livelihood center focused around IT skills, and it was a pilot. Together, we ensured that not only was the pilot super successful, it led to significant amount of scaling once the pilot was over. The association and the experience of working together and launching something big and successful was so good that we then decided to do another pilot together. This time, the pilot probably has larger ramifications in the society, and we hope to see it see that it is successful, and we can bring it to scale. Personally, I'm heavily invested in Udyan Care myself, in both the projects as well as in the Ghar program that they have. I have with me Anisha over here. Anisha is the CEO of Udyan Care, and she's worked extensively with abandoned and orphaned children and underprivileged youth. Hi, Anisha.
Hi, Kanu.
Hi. You can hear me clearly, Anisha?
Very clearly, and I hope you can too. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Anisha, let's start with introducing Udyan Care to the group briefly. What is the problem that Udyan Care is trying to solve? What is the vision? How far have we reached in the solution that we think is the solution to this problem?
Thanks so much, Kanu, and also for having us over today. I think, when you talk about the vision, it's very simple for us. It's 4 words, and it's where young lives shine. And the reason that we have that line, and it's very different from saying the same words differently, making young lives shine, because of the simple reason that we think that we create an ecosystem. We're not about providing, we're not about giving, we're not about daan. We're not an NGO that's in your typical space of actually giving, but as much as it is in terms of creating an ecosystem. And that's why we very carefully thought of our tagline when we worked in the entire communication space. So where young lives shine, and that's what we've been working for and working with for the last 26 years. My focus really, or our organization's focus of what we're going to talk about today, because I know that we have limited time and there's a lot that Udyan Care does. What I'd like to focus on is the core of, if you were to talk to anybody about who Udyan Care is, it really is in the area of child protection, which is different from child rights. So it's children that are growing up outside of the family, out of family care. So they're children that don't have family for various reasons, the least of which is actually being orphaned. 85% of the children who claim to be orphaned aren't actually orphaned at all. That's a separate conversation. The reason that we are focused today is actually talking about the social capital that is being lost by virtue of the fact that children are growing up in childcare institutions, or what lay people would call orphanages, across this country and across South Asia, as a matter of fact. They turn 18 and they're technically turned loose, and they basically fall off the map. This is as, it's like talking, I've been told before, this is like talking about an endangered species of a rare bird, because very few people even know what the meaning of the term care leaver is. So we're starting from very much of the scratch that Sarah was talking about when she said that philanthropy has the opportunity of taking this social risk capital, and that's what SVP has done for us, is allowing for us to actually educate people, talk to people about the fact that there are youth with various vulnerabilities, which your previous 2 panelists have spoken about so beautifully. But the reality is that it's only when you focus down and you have organizations that actually focus on something that they have done as practitioners for many, many years, which is what Udyan Care has done, is bringing up children outside of family care, but now looking at what happens to them when they have to become contributing adults. And that's really the project that SVP is supporting us for at the moment. And for that, I'm so grateful.
That's great. So Anisha, what we are trying to do over here is we are trying to demonstrate how SVP has helped Udyan Care, or for that matter, what is the model in which we work with our investees. And in order to do that, it'll be nice to have a few details about the latest project that we are on, which is Silk. Let's use that as a vehicle to demonstrate how we work together. So what is the purpose of this project? What is it trying to achieve? And if you could tell us what Silk stands for.
Absolutely. So we're big on communication, and we're big on trying to connect with the youth in various ways. And one of the things that has come to us when we work with kids who actually help formulate our entire program, because they're hugely participative in it. Another thing that Sarah said, it's like a mantra for us: nothing about us without us. And so this project that we're talking about, or the program that we're talking about, really is a change movement, which is bringing about a voice for youth that have grown up outside families. And bringing that voice really comes from a space of making them participate, or having them, I shouldn't say making, having them participate. And the advantage of doing that versus working with the children we've worked in for the last 26 years is these are adults, they are young adults, and they have and are in a position to have a voice of their own and to actually speak for themselves. And that's what the basis of this program is. So it's youth that are coming out of care. They have massive vulnerabilities across what we've trademarked to call the sphere of aftercare. So care is what happens to you when you're growing up in a childcare institution. So, you know, the way that you think of the whole, for lack of anything else, Harry Potter, Oliver Twist, everything that you can think of, to the kind of work that we do, which is small family homes, which marries the joint family and the foster care system in the US and the UK, much of which is broken. And we've tried to have these 4 small family homes. This is our practitioner side to make sure that children grow up with individualized care. Having said that, the scaling of what we're talking about now is working across the country through a research study that we did in 2018, the outcome of which was really about how forgotten these youth are once they are released, as the technical term goes, under the Juvenile Justice Act, which is the law under which we function. The important part of these youth, like I said, is that they have a voice and they have to have a platform. So SILK, which is what is an acronym for Support for Youth Leaving Care, is people like all of you, mentors who come together, organizations like ours who are working in the space of alternative care or different spaces where children grow up without family. And they're coming together as a movement to make sure that as a mentoring pool and as a financial support, these youth have someone who, for lack of any other phrase, someone who has their back. And that's how we've developed this program. So it is divided into, very quickly, 3 different parts, all of which SVP is supporting in some form or the other. The most basic is that of service delivery. So we've got a bunch of kids that we have reached out to through a very rigorous need assessment study that was done and developed by in partnership with SVP. We've got psychometric testers who've been fantastic working with us. We've had Shantanu, we've had Kanu, fantastic group of people that have helped us to put together quite a rigorous process of assessing. We go into different NGOs and government homes. We assess kids who need help or would need support in the area of education, vocational training, soft skill development, and then finally placement, whilst under the umbrella of a mentoring framework. So we have across 2 states, we've launched the program in Delhi with SVP and in Gujarat with other partners, including Tata Trusts. So we have a model that we're trying to, that was what Pramod was talking about right in the beginning. You create a model and then you talk about scaling it. So we're scaling it at 2 different levels. One is the practitioner model. So we have more philanthropies, more organizations, and more NGOs that are able to take our model and replicate it, which is the actual service delivery part of it, which in the current new FCRA regime will obviously be a good thing, because that's all we're going to be able to do. Advocacy is no more something that we're going to be allowed to do under the FCRA regime, but that's a separate conversation. The second part of what we're doing is actually working with governments and through multilateral organizations like UNICEF who are invested in these youth. Once we start to talk about who a care leaver is, what defines them, which is really something you don't need to do in Australia or in the UK or even in the US, we're at that stage where we're talking to governments and making governments sit up and take notice and allow for their training of their functionaries to understand that they too are responsible for these 18 to 21-year-olds. The third part is this the part of actually transitioning these youth out of care. So again, it is from a model perspective. So you've got stakeholders like Multilats who can actually get you to have an international perspective. You've got the government that, unless you're working with, as all of us know, you're not going to get any scale. But you also have, and that's our strong belief, and I know there are many people that would think otherwise, especially when models are scaling is talked about, that until you're a practitioner, you cannot create a program. And the practitioner expertise for us comes from the fact that even whether it's me, who's today the executive director, but 16 years, I have been a mentor since I was 27 to young girls and boys growing up outside of care. That allows for me to be able to talk to you and to the youth and make sure that they participate because I know them. And all of us at Udayan Care, because we have a 1:8 ratio of staff to volunteers who are long-term involved in working with these youth, that's what gives us a position of strength when we're creating a model that we feel can be replicated.
Right. So to sum it up, what we are trying to do is, help children who are leaving orphanages, who have nowhere else to go, to build a system that will allow them to transition either into higher education or into livelihoods without being lost to the country. So that's the kind of social capital that we will be able to generate if this project is successful. Now, coming back to SVP and Udin Care Association and Nisha, I just wanted to, help. I just want you to highlight the basic tenets of this relationship. How is it that this model is working? What is it that SVP is helping you do?
Kanu, in order to do that, you'll allow me a minute to go one step back, which is that you talked in the beginning about the fact that there has been a program that we've already been working with you on, which was more vanilla in terms of being an IT skilling program. But what that did allow us to do was actually understand the philosophy and the ethos behind SVP very, very deeply, which was that of not mentoring necessarily the beneficiaries, but mentoring an organization like us. You know, you heard about the All Heart and you're hearing about all of these wonderful people that you're meeting, but the reality is because we're so closely connected to the cause, oftentimes it does happen as we were talking about, as she was saying that, just to get systems, processes, connections, being able to write to Sanjeev Sachar in the middle of the night and say, hey, can you connect me to somebody who could help me with the communication project, or I'm getting stuck with this particular thing. Just the capital that has come to us and the mind and the intellect that has come to us, which has allowed me to scale our organization's capabilities, or very grassroots level workers who are all heart really in the social sector for that reason, but now being able to match that with the skills that SVP has helped us to develop. That was what actually gave us the strength to come to you, to SVP, to talk about something that was as, like I said, it's as obscure, if that's the term to use, as talking about something as greenfield as aftercare within youth. So there's, lots of vulnerabilities that the youth are talking about today. But what really gave us the courage really was because of the fact that I think SVP is willing to take that risk. So when we got out there and we spoke to you about it, it was because we came from a place where the way that we had been pushed in the previous program to have one IT center that started out as providing skills and got down to being told, this is how you look at placement, do research, and you're going to come up with insights that are going to help us to find out that, for example, kids don't want to travel to jobs more than 15 kilometers away from their centers and their homes, which helped us to reduce attrition from 70% in a job down to 35%. That kind of insight is where SVP came into developing or co-developing the program that we're running today for aftercare. So assessing the needs of these youth, I think, was a really hard thing to do, because where we come from, everybody's in need. And having really someone help us look at it from a 30,000 feet view and say, here's how we develop a psychometric test, because it's not going to be good enough to understand what their class 12 marks were. But we need to understand the trauma that they come from. We need to understand that the backgrounds that they come from, and help develop a program whilst also setting it up for success. Because if it doesn't do that, then the model replication of it is also going to be very hard. So that, I think, was very, very important for us. I think the pathway to scale is giving us that, the doors that you're opening for us, or the fact that we're able to connect with people who could talk to us in different spaces, in education, in skill building, in life skills development. All of this is helping us to build that sphere of aftercare model in a very, very tangible way that we think that will be, again, replicable. And to come back to the last point, as I said, the mentoring part of it, because as we've understood SVP and there are more partners to us than I think they are funders to us, we know the capabilities that we can reach out to for individual people who have chosen to connect with this program, whether it's Rajiv Bakshi, whether it's you, Kanupriya, whether it's Shantanu, whether it's Shalini. It's been Harsh who started the whole process with us in the first place. Just that development of being able to, for him to call us and tell us as leaders, here's what's happening with your team and you have no idea. That is a true partnership. And that's where I think where our growth is poised to happen from.
Thank you so much for this interaction, Nisha, and thank you for the partnership. Back to you, Alka.
Thank you, Kanupriya. The next session is with Swati Agarwal, the GM of SVP Hyderabad, who will be talking to GV Krishnagopal of Access Livelihoods Group of Hyderabad. AL Group is a collective of social enterprises that works with women and youth from marginalized communities to reimagine and transform their livelihoods. As a group, it offers end-to-end support, including pre-incubation, incubation, and acceleration support programs. These professional services are delivered by a team of 60 plus passionate individuals who have graduated from some of India's best institutions and have consciously chosen the road less traveled. The mission of AL Group is to create a world for everyone: producers, consumers, enterprises, and entrepreneurs. Their vision is to enhance livelihoods of 1 million economically disadvantaged households directly by March 2028. Mr. G.V. Krishnagopal, the Executive Director of AL, is passionate about working with the economically marginalized in their effort to transform their lives and be self-reliant. So over to you, Swati and Mr. Krishnagopal.
Alka, thank you so much for the warm introduction. A very good afternoon to all the participants on this webinar. My name is Swati Agrawal. I'm the General Manager of SVP Hyderabad Chapter. Krishnagopal, welcome to SVP Samvad 2020. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Swati. Thanks, Swati. It's been my pleasure to listen to all the people who have already spoken and many partners with whom SVP is working. And it's truly humbling to have time to speak out our views as a partner of SVP.
Same here, KJ. I'm having a great time, and I hope everyone is having a really good time listening to very inspiring speakers from the morning. KJ, SVP and AL Group have been close partners for more than a year and a half now. We have spent tens and tens of hours together, site visits to your office, to SVP office, to our partners' houses, all of you, your leadership team, Taru, Sharat, Shruti, Switha, you all have been very welcoming. I want to use this platform to really thank you for choosing us to be your partner in this very beautiful journey of Access Livelihoods Group. You all really inspire us. So KG, let me just begin with the beginning. So let's go back to your college days. You have graduation in dairy technology and you did your MBA from IRMA. Why did you choose, instead of taking a high-paying job, why did you choose the path less traveled and co-found the Access Livelihood Group of companies?
Yeah, so three very simple answers. The answer is one, the charm, second being beauty, and third is adventure. Charm, I say, because it's always inspiring to reimagine the Amul model, which is one of the largest successful development program in the world for all other communities, whether it is farmers, weavers, and tribals. So that's the charm. The beauty is that we're really talking about a fifth generation intervention using philanthropy money, which means that we no longer treat rural, tribal, and urban marginalized women as beneficiaries, but as partners and partners of impact. The third, of course, is adventure. Adventure is more personal at the level because it allows me to explore my complete potential, while I solve the complex problems which are like gender equality, equitable distribution of wealth, and better quality of life for small producers.
KG, my next question is on scale. SVP's focus is scale. Mr. Pramod Bhashan in his keynote speaker today talked about this. What we truly like about Access Livelihoods Group is the scale at which you work and the plan that you have in your organization. So KG, just talking about scale, can you mention some of the unique innovations that you had to really introduce to work such at large scale of working with 65,000 women?
Yeah, so actually when you work with small and marginal producers and women in the country, we have to understand that it is not been working for the 70 odd years or 75 years, and they're not getting the right kind of support which is required. And therefore, it means that we have to innovate each and every element of support that can be created for these women. But I would just highlight just 4 or 5 of them, the key innovations that we have done. First, of course, is to accelerate India's first all-women cooperative dairy. It is Karimnagar in Telangana, where we organize more than 20,000 women to help them create what we call as a reliable, affordable, last-mile hyperlocal delivery of dairy and veterinary services. And the enterprise that has got established today is a 120 crore brand. The women there, 20,000 women own this brand called Swakrushi, and they manage all their affairs independently. They have their own capital base of around 10 crores. The second innovation that I would like to speak about is our work with the women weavers, where we have designed India's first end-to-end blockchain-led solution, where yarn to fabric can be fully tracked, and the complex handloom operations are managed through a very unique software solution that we have created to enable this entire process. The third innovation that I would like to speak about is that as we walked along, we understood that the women in rural India are actually more perceptive, and they can actually absorb all the MBA frameworks, knowledge, all that we talk about in higher education platforms. But unfortunately, we do not treat them as eligible to undergo a micro MBA. So what we have done is we have created a 6 months micro MBA. Today, more than 200 women have who are school dropouts have the first time undergone MBA's knowledge and skills. They have acquired this knowledge and skills, and they've been tested against these skills, almost on par, where business skills, the business planning skills, the marketing skills, all of these have been tested for these women. And they are the, I would say, the first proud 200 women who have gone through this micro MBA. The fourth is to create what we call a semi-intensive backyard poultry model for the tribal women, where we base the poultry model based on desi birds, unlike the broiler birds, which are external to India's own biodiversity. And lastly, we have also created a woman-managed hyper-local delivery-based daily essentials at the doorstep for the rural women. Today, 9,000 women directly get essentials every month delivered at their household based on their demand.
KG, thanks for sharing. So KG, keeping the scale context in mind, I want to ask you to share your vision of your 3 very ambitious programs of Operation Beehive, Operation Butterfly, and Operation Web. Just one line vision, please.
Yes. Yeah. So Operation Beehive is how do we reimagine Amul's model for small marginal women farmers in rain-fed areas with a concern for natural resources, which means that we are looking at natural farming being scaled with 1 million women. The Operation Web is to try and look at how do we create 10,000 women weavers network which owns and manages the largest handloom brand in the country. And that's actually the true representation of creative abilities of India. So we want that to be showcased to the world. And the third, Operation Butterfly, is to work with around 1 lakh women and youth so that they can undertake purposeful and responsible entrepreneurship. That's what we hope to do in these 3 missions.
Great, KG, thanks. So KG, coming to SVP partnership, we have spent so many hours together. Very interesting to note that we have not really had any grant engagement with you, but still we have been able to mobilize more than 50 lakhs. We have been able to engage with you in all your different projects, artisans, academy, and of course your work with the women producer companies. So KG, where do you really see, how do you see SVP partnership as? How do you see?
First, I think I will just talk about, 5 critical things that the collectively the SVP group of Hyderabad has contributed. And those are like really coaching the executives in our entire group. We have around 7 to 8 leadership team members. These have been coached by the SVP partners in Hyderabad. The second, of course, is they've always been the right first people whom we approach for all the crises that we are facing. So crisis management, I think the tremendous amount of knowledge and experience that these partners carry helps us to handle crisis and in fact manage critical relations. We have been trying to manage critical relations with Tata Power with the support of SVP. Then third, of course, leveraging resources, which you mentioned, that we mobilized more than 50 lakhs with the support of SVP partners during the COVID crisis so that we can reach out more and more women at the grassroots level. And fourth is the access to networks. And this is it is super fast, and you can connect to the right persons at the topmost level with the help of SVP partners. And of course, the most important thing that, most of these partners actually treated us as a family. And it is always the place where we found some rest and peace in all the chaos that we are trying to pursue. But more importantly, I would like to mention one critical contribution by, there are many contributions, but I would like to mention one critical contribution individually what these people have, SVP partners have done. So in Ajit, what we found was that he has been guiding us on our learning foundation. But more importantly, he has been the most vocal critic of all our proposals, our strategies, and all those things. So helping us to get the right direction. Ram has been actually the most important anchor for us during the COVID crisis, because he not only helped us access huge amount of money from the seed companies of the country, helping us to reach out more farmers during the COVID crisis, but he's also anchoring our, the major relations that we are trying to handle with corporates like Tata Power. The Paparao ji has been very critically contributing in our operational design and helping us scale up the entire process. Charu has been encouraging us to give a lot of high amount of energy, expanding our leadership horizons. And Shobhu has been very helpful in trying to expand our social media outreach. So I must say that it's been tremendous. These people have demonstrated tremendous modesty, sincerity, and commitment to the whole partnership. And it's been very great. Swati, I must also mention that you have been a very effective and efficient Sutradhar in this entire relationship. And it wouldn't have been possible to have all these people around unless we had somebody like you efficiently helping us to, align all these relationships.
So happy to hear that, KG, you found so much value in SVP partnership. So KG, talking about the philanthropic support that you have received from SVP, what philanthropic support from the ecosystem that you require or organizations like yours require to work at a scale in our country?
No, I think a lot of others also have spoken, the partners have also spoken. I think philanthropy has to look at 2-3 things, that while they give disbursed small investments with multiple organizations, they also have to make significant and focused investments on high potential programs and projects. So that is one big shift in philanthropy that has to happen. Internationally, it is happening. I think India has to also discover this. The second thing that is that philanthropy should become catalytic philanthropy, which means that philanthropic capital has to combine with formal equity and debt resources to really bring about sustainable change, and especially in the world of enterprise and employment where we are focused on, and for the women, this is a critical resource to have. And the third, of course, is that philanthropy in isolation, like our key speaker in the morning had spoken, Mr. Pramod, that philanthropy in isolation is not going to help. It has to be combined with an attention, an engagement with full attention, where all other resources and capital are combined. So these are the 3 things that I would expect from philanthropy ecosystem.
KG, my last question to you is, you have a life partner in Switha. She's also part of the development sector. She's heading Chitrika, sub-organization of Access Livelihoods Group. What is it like to have a life partner who is equally passionate and working with you in the same space?
The first lessons when I said that I will commit myself to work with women producers in the country, small and marginal women, my first lesson is how do you treat women as partners, really in true sense, as somebody not a beneficiary, but as a partner, came from my own life partner, which is Switha. Not only that, she has also helped me balance the priorities in the life cycle needs. And in many ways, she has also helped me to be the compass in my life, so that I really undertake a disciplined pursuit for whatever I have committed to in my life. But I think the most enjoyable part has been we've evolved an integral living where the professional and personal phases are absolutely in a perfect balance and continuum. So in many ways, it's been humbling. We have had our own issues. We fought out many of these issues. We have settled to a relation which has been very enriching and really something on which I am able to build whatever we have visualized together.
KG, all the best to you and the entire team of Access Livelihoods Group. Back
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
KG, my email ID on the chat. So please reach out to us for any questions or any partnership related requests.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. I would just like to say that we are at 12:30 and we have 2 more calls there. So we will try to finish them in a very, in a slightly, quicker way. But please stay on for the 2 things. Now we will listen to Snigdha Shah of SVP Kolkata in conversation with Payal Nath of Kadam India, Kolkata. Kadam India is a voluntary organization dedicated to the holistic development of rural craft villages. It works towards creating sustainable livelihood solutions for rural women and communities through their 3-year trainings, offering end-to-end business solutions while they work from home, therefore reversing migration to cities. Today, having trained more than 6,000 rural households, they have got many awards: Amazon SMB Social Entrepreneur of the Year, WEF Iconic Leader, Outlook Business Wow 19, which is Women of Worth. Payal Nath is the team leader who has led them in this journey. So over to Snigdha and Payal.
Thank you so much, Alka. A very, very good afternoon to all of you. And I have had a really wonderful morning listening to so many inspiring speakers. And I'm completely honored to share the stage with you, Payal. You're one person ever since the first time I met you over a year back. Every conversation with you leaves me inspired, leaves me, feeling that what I'm here for is the right thing. So let's begin by you telling us, why did you join this journey of Kadam? I mean, what made you start it?
Thank you, Snigdha, for the beautiful introduction. So yes, when you ask about Kadam as to why we started, I think it all starts from your childhood. I earlier heard one of the speakers, panelists, also speak about how, her parents have influenced her. I think for me as well, it was a lot of my parents influencing. We used to have after dinner discussions, and he would say, he was an educationist from the army, my father, and he would say, when you grow up, you just do not be a national waste. You can be a good mother and bring up a responsible citizen. That's also doing a important contribution to the planet or the place where you live. So I think I've seen my mother do voluntary work all her life. So I think all these sort of experiences make you who you are as you travel and you adapt. I mean, because of my parents being in the army. And then I got married to a man. My husband is, I would say, half German. So they don't work for a living, they live to work. So I think all those sort of having inspirational people around you, and of course your personal feeling as well. I remember I used to ask questions as to why people are poor, why can't, so many unanswered questions that used to bog me. And my grandparents and my parents would always tell me, you'll find the answers all within you. And all the solutions also you'll find within you. I think that's the reason probably why when I started my career after studying physics honors from Delhi University, working in a corporate sector for a couple of years, working with an Italian designer as a boss in the engineering sector. And still my heart was in helping the people who were who were marginalized, where I thought I could add far more value than what I was adding in the corporate sector. Yes, I think that's how it all began, and it carried on. And I'm thankful to every part of the journey that that's touched my life, I would say. Working in the organized sector has sort of taught how to structure, or how important it is to structure and bring it to the marginalized sectors, bring in your strength. So identifying my own strength, marrying it with the strength of the rural communities that I work with, and creating a solution by combining it with the strengths of SVP, which is networking and again structuring. I think it's been a beautiful journey till now. I'm blessed to be born on this planet. Thank you.
So, Payal, I think each Indian is, very closely and emotionally connected to the handicraft sector. Handicrafts also is a very large employment generator and contributor to exports. What differentiates Kadam?
Yes, Kadam, before we started Kadam, I was a consultant to the Ministry of Commerce. And our jobs were as consultants to work in rural areas based on the policies of the government at that point of time. I'm talking about 2.5 decades ago. And we realized that the last mile, it was like different limbs working in different directions. So the last mile bit was always missing. For example, the cottage industries would be responsible for marketing, the Development Commission of Handicrafts and Handloom would be responsible for training. So like that, all were separate, aspects. And it was very hard to marry all of them. So I think it's at a certain point in time, way back in 2000 beginning, when I thought if I could sort of, I had my own ways, if we could create a holistic solution wherein all of these, even if the government doesn't support, if I believed in it and if I could actually try it out, and it worked. We tried with the first village in Orissa, and we saw the kind of success that we got. It was not in sync with the policies at that time of the government, but yes, be the change that you want to see. And we walked that path and we saw the change. So I think that providing a holistic solution in terms of right now, when everybody talks about sustainable development goals, way back in 2006 when we started the organization, I think we fulfilled 10 of the 17 sustainable development goals already through our model of Kadam, the way we exist. And our Kadam NGO also has a symbiotic relationship with Kadam Heart, which is the marketing platform which we've offered, which we've always noticed is difficult for the artisans or the rural communities to do on their own, wherein we brought in the strength of these rural people, put in the supply chains in place through Kadam and through the trainings that we follow, create high quality products. Kadam Heart will take on the marketing responsibilities and ensure that the profits that are made would be shared by these communities. So basically not wanting the communities to become entrepreneurs completely on their own, but hand-holding and collaborating with them in the process of making profits or making a sustainable income. I think that was the theory of change, I would say, that we brought into this space.
Great. I remember a year back, when we first started out this conversation at Kolkata, you were looking at something that was going to pivot your business model. And then COVID struck and certain things just fell into place. So share with us a little bit about what has changed and how has SVP been part of this journey?
Sure. We, the artisans of the rural communities were so used to working on a B2B model of orders. So, bulk orders. And the profitability is very low in that. But the fact is that the artisans are happier, at least in the areas that we work. We work in 4 states currently in India. So they were happier doing bulk orders because the responsibility of selling individual pieces was never on them. And, they knew that they would get a certain amount of money at the end of the month, every month. So we were thinking of moving to B2C space more, which means directly selling to retailers, because there we saw higher profitability to be shared with them. And then COVID hit. And of course, all the offline melas and exhibitions that happened, that stopped, which meant online sales was the only thing that you could, move to for selling the produce and to help them earn higher profitability, which we had thought of. And here we were in a situation, there was, forget about profits, there was no work also that would, happen because of this. Now, luckily, towards the end of 2019, we had started with Amazon, some trials with the online selling. And that's when we realized how important it was to focus on empowering Kadam Heart first, to be able to empower all the rural communities that Kadam had trained or works with. So the algorithms that work, while working, selling online, the business analysis which is required, the onboarding processes, it is too tedious for artisans to be able to understand. Even we took some time and we're still sort of, struggling. But I think that decision, end of 2019, really helped us to, tide over this COVID situation where we saw during COVID, people were sitting at home. So yes, the bulk orders completely diminished, finished almost, but we had 10 times more B2C online sales. And for that, we had to change a lot of the ways we worked in the office. I mean, people were in an NGO setting, or how it is, it's not always easy for rural, the groups to be able to, who are used to selling offline, to suddenly do online. So a lot of changes. I would say thank you, SVP, because you really helped us there in putting our systems in place. We introduced barcoding for our products. We introduced inventory management systems. The fact that when you move from buyers deciding what to produce, and here where the decision is yours, that the inventory that you're going to create, that is actually going to liquidate and sell, and to individually which product has higher profitability, to identify that and position that, or probably try and market those through social media campaigns and marketing campaigns and things like that. So I think, yes, this was a major transition, but it did help us to get the award from Mr. Jeff Bezos from Amazon when we were fortunate to get the Social Entrepreneur of the Year award in 2020 as well. But yes, I think the whole fact of collaborating and not putting the onus just on creating a rural enterprise, but actually marrying it in the whole ecosystem of collaborating with the marketeers, collaborating with the, operational analysts, with the inventory management teams, various experts, and the expertise which the rural people have in making high quality products. And we just let them stick to making high quality products to earn their higher profits. Yes, so I think that was...
Thank you, Payal. I mean, our conversation would go on, but in the interest of time, I'm really happy that SVP and Kadam are working together to create 325 sustainable incomes for artisans and doubling revenues in 1 year. I'm going to put down, URL links where you can access Kadam's beautiful products. So please place your orders for Diwali. Thank you, Payal, and over to you, Alka.
Thank you. The last conversation, I'm sorry, we seem to be rushing through a bit, but wonderful conversations. The last conversation is between Angana Nanavati, GM, SVP Ahmedabad, and Nilesh Bhai Priyadarshi, founder Banyan Tree Foundation Karigar Clinic. Banyan Tree Foundation has one vision: develop micro-entrepreneurs among Karigar communities to create sustainable livelihoods and strengthen their social and economic status. They have assisted artisans from Kutch and now Gujarat to find an audience for their art without going through middlemen and larger corporates, by creating an individual brand that can provide sustainable employment. Nilesh Priyadarshi is a management professional with over 18 years of experience in the development and corporate sector. His dream is to create 1,000 craftpreneurs across India and create livelihoods for 10 lakh families in this sector. Over to you, Angana and Nilesh.
Thank you very much, Alka. So for us, Banyan Tree Foundation was the first NGO that Ahmedabad started working with, and was such luck for us as it is because of the enthusiasm of Nilesh Bhai that pushes us to do so much more with the artisans and with him. So with that, I will hand it over to Nilesh Bhai. Can you please talk to us a little bit about Karigar Clinic?
Yes, thanks, Angana. Good afternoon, everybody. Myself, Nilesh Priyadarshi. I'm a social entrepreneur. I have studied my master's in business management and also PhD on developing Gandhian rural business model. मैनेजमेंट की पढ़ाई के बाद मेरे पास दो चॉइस थी, कोई कॉर्पोरेट में जाके काम करूं या फिर ग्रास रूट में काम करूं। एक में वर्टिकल डेवलपमेंट था और दूसरे में हॉरिजॉन्टल डेवलपमेंट था। यूजुअली हमने ये देखा है कि लोग 60 के बाद सोशल सेक्टर में आना पसंद करते हैं, तो मैंने सोचा कि why I should wait till 60, और फिर मैंने ग्रास रूट में जाने का निर्णय करा। 15 सालों तक कच्छ के छोटे से गांव में मैं कारीगरों के बीच रहा तो उनके प्रॉब्लम को मैंने बहुत अच्छे से समझा। मैंने ये महसूस किया कि ग्लोबलाइजेशन ने हमें ये सिखाया कि हमें बहुत बड़ा बनना है, बहुत सारे पैसे कमाने हैं, बहुत दौड़-भाग करनी है। तो वहां पर गांव में सिचुएशन ये था कि लोग गांव छोड़कर शहरों में जा रहे हैं, दुबई जा रहे हैं कमाने के लिए। तो धीरे धीरे गांव टूटते जा रहे हैं और शहर बहुत बड़े होते जा रहे हैं। अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट और अर्बनाइजेशन दो प्रमुख समस्याएं हैं इस देश की। अगर गांव के लोगों को गांव में ही रोजगार दिया जाए तो उनको शहरों में जाना नहीं पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अर्बनाइजेशन से और भी समस्याएं पैदा होती हैं। गांव के लोग क्या काम कर सकते हैं? हर एक गांव में कुछ न कुछ कला होती है। अगर हम उसको अच्छे से डेवलप करते हैं तो गांव के लोग गांव में ही रह के काम करेंगे। और इसी उद्देश्य से हमने बनियन ट्री फाउंडेशन के तहत कारीगर क्लिनिक की शुरुआत की।
Thank you very much, Nilesh Bhai. So my first question to you would be कि इतने सारे NGOs हैं जो क्राफ्ट सेक्टर में काम करते हैं, तो आपने कारीगर क्लिनिक क्यों शुरू किया? क्या पहलू था आपका?
बहुत सारे NGO क्राफ्ट सेक्टर में काम कर रहे हैं, तो मैं पहले से बहुत क्लियर था कि आई डोंट वांट टू बिकम अनदर NGO। मेरा ये सौभाग्य रहा कि पिछले 18 सालों में मैं क्राफ्ट सेक्टर के लीडिंग एनजीओ और लीडिंग कॉरपोरेट के साथ मैंने काम किया। दोनों के सिस्टम में जाके मैंने उनके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सिस्टम को समझा। दोनों में कॉमन बात ये थी कि दोनों ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अपने अपने ब्रांड को मार्केट में वेल एस्टेब्लिश कर चुके थे, पर एक जगह लेकिन आ रही थी कि वो लोग जिन कारीगरों के साथ काम कर रहे हैं उनको कहीं पर भी आइडेंटिटी नहीं मिल रही है, वैल्यू नहीं मिल रहा है, रिकॉग्निशन नहीं मिल रहा है। कारीगर पहले भी मजदूरी करता था और अब भी मजदूरी करता है, सिर्फ उसका प्रकार चेंज हो गया है। कारीगर सिर्फ पैसा नहीं चाहता, पैसा के अलावा वो चाहता है कि उसको नाम मिले, सम्मान मिले, उसकी कला उसके नाम से बिके। हमने सोचा कि छोटे छोटे कारीगर को अगर माइक्रो एंटरप्रेन्योर बनाया जाए और उनको बिजनेस कैसे करना है वो सिखाया जाए, तो धीरे धीरे वो पूरे सिस्टम को लर्न करेंगे और कुछ ही समय में वो एक अच्छे एंटरप्रेन्योर के तौर पर अपने आप को प्रस्थापित कर सकते हैं। बहुत सारे ऐसे कारीगर हैं जो अपना खुद का बिजनेस करना चाहते हैं, पर शिक्षा, रिसोर्सेस, मार्केटिंग स्किल, डिजाइन स्किल, बिजनेस मैनेजमेंट स्किल के अभाव के कारण वो ऐसा करना सोच नहीं पा रहे हैं, और किसी ने अगर स्टार्ट कर भी दिया तो उसको अच्छे से चला नहीं पा रहे हैं। तो इसी विचार से हमने कारीगर क्लिनिक प्रोजेक्ट की शुरुआत करी। कारीगर क्लिनिक अब तक का पहला रूरल बिजनेस क्लिनिक है जहां पर कारीगर का बिजनेस हेल्थ चेकअप किया जाता है। कारीगर का हम मार्केट ऑडिट करते हैं, उनका डिजाइन ऑडिट करते हैं, एक और डायग्नोसिस रिपोर्ट निकालते हैं, और जो भी फील्ड में उनको सपोर्ट की जरूरत होती है वहां पर हम उनको सपोर्ट करते हैं। एक छोटे एंटरप्रेन्योर को अपना बिजनेस रन करने के लिए जो इकोसिस्टम की जरूरत होती है वो सारा इकोसिस्टम हम उनको डेवलप करके देते हैं। वो इकोसिस्टम को वो लर्न करते हैं और कुछ ही समय में अपने आप को एक इंडिपेंडेंट एंटरप्रेन्योर के तौर पर मार्केट में प्रस्थापित करते हैं।
थैंक यू नीलेश भाई। आप बता सकते हैं कि एसवीपी का क्या, पार्टनर्स का क्या रोल रहा आपकी इस जर्नी में जब आपने कारीगर क्लिनिक और बनियन ट्री फाउंडेशन शुरू किया?
एक्चुअली सोशल वेंचर पार्टनर के साथ जुड़ना ही अपने आप में एक सौभाग्य है। खासतौर पर हमारे जैसे नए लोग जो सोशल सेक्टर में काम कर रहे हैं और काम करना चाहते हैं, एसवीपी उनको प्लेटफॉर्म देता है। एसवीपी एक्चुअली विचारों और धैर्य की परीक्षा भी करता है, विचारों का ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग भी करता है। दूसरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की तरह एसवीपी सिर्फ फंड नहीं देता है, पर फंड के अलावा जो भी आवश्यकता रहती है उसमें सपोर्ट करता है। मेरा ये मानना है कि एसवीपी हमारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सिस्टम को ठीक करने में हेल्प करता है, एक डिसिप्लिन वे में काम करने के लिए हमें प्रेरित करता है। एसवीपी अलग अलग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या व्यक्ति के साथ नेटवर्क एस्टेब्लिश करने में हमें हेल्प करता है, और मोटे तौर पर एसवीपी का रोल सिर्फ फंडिंग तक सीमित नहीं रहता है, पर एक मेंटर की तरह वो हमें हर एक स्टेज में गाइड करते रहते हैं।
थैंक यू वेरी मच नीलेश भाई। अच्छा, आपने काफी इनोवेटिव चीजें की जब कोविड का सिचुएशन चल रहा था। इस दरमियान आपने आर्टिजन्स को कैसे मदद की, और अभी आप आगे क्या करने वाले? एनी न्यू इंटरवेंशंस, एंड हाउ आर यू ट्राइंग टू कॉम्बैट दिस न्यू प्रॉब्लम दैट वी हैव कम अप स्पेशली फॉर द आर्टिजन्स?
एक्चुअली समग्र विश्व में कोरोना के कारण जो परिस्थिति निर्माण हुई, इसमें कहीं ना कहीं सब लोग प्रभावित हुए, पर सबसे ज्यादा प्रभावित कारीगर हुए हैं, क्योंकि क्राफ्ट सेक्टर में जो काम कर रहे हैं उसमें 3 लोगों का बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रोल रहता है, कारीगर, सप्लायर और कंज्यूमर। कोविड के टाइम में सप्लायर कारीगर को सामान नहीं दे पा रहा था, कारीगर प्रोडक्शन नहीं कर पा रहा था, और उसको मार्केट में बेच नहीं पा रहा था। कुछ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने हमें अप्रोच करा कि कारीगर को फाइनेंशियल हेल्प दिया जाए, पर हम ये चाहते थे, हमारा अर्थक्वेक के टाइम में ये एक्सपीरियंस रहा था कि अगर किसी भी व्यक्ति को फाइनेंशियल हेल्प किया जाए तो वो प्रॉब्लम का परमानेंट सॉल्यूशन नहीं है, तो और लॉन्ग टर्म में उसके नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट भी आते हैं। हम चाहते थे कि कारीगर को काम के बदले में पैसा दिया जाए, जिससे उसका आत्मसम्मान बढ़ा रहे और उसकी क्रिएटिविटी का भी यूज हो। एसवीपी को, स्पेशली अंगना को हमने ये बात बताई, और उन्होंने हमारे प्रपोजल को गिव इंडिया में भेजा, और गिव इंडिया को हमारा ये विचार बहुत अच्छा लगा, क्योंकि हम एग्जैक्टली कारीगर को काम के बदले में पैसा देना चाहते थे। तो हमने एक प्रोजेक्ट इंट्रोड्यूस करा, लोकल गिफ्ट बॉक्स, जहां पर अलग अलग कम्युनिटी के अलग अलग क्राफ्ट को हमने एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर लाए और 100 मोस्ट वल्नरेबल फैमिलीज को हमने सिलेक्ट किया और उनके पास क्राफ्ट की चीजें बनवाई। और हमने 4 अलग अलग क्राफ्ट कम्युनिटी के 100 से ज्यादा आर्टिसन के साथ काम करा है और हमारा प्रयास है कि लोकल गिफ्ट बॉक्स जो पूरी तरह लोकल है वो ज्यादा से ज्यादा फैमिली तक हम उसको पहुंचाए। और उसके लिए हम चाहते हैं कि हर एक को ये गिफ्ट बॉक्स हम कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री भेजें, वो क्राफ्ट का इम्पोर्टेंस वो खुद समझे, अपने फैमिली को समझाए, और अगर उनको अच्छा लगता है तो दे कैन कंटिन्यू दिस चेंज एंड गिफ्ट टू देयर फैमिली और देयर फ्रेंड्स। तो हमारा ये कोशिश है कि कोविड के कारण कारीगर कम्युनिटी में जो स्ट्रेस बना था और उनको जो अनसर्टेनिटी लग रही थी उसमें कैसे कारीगर लोग अपना लाइवलीहुड कंटिन्यू रख पाए। तो एसवीपी के कारण हम लोकल गिफ्ट बॉक्स का प्रोजेक्ट इनिशिएट करा है और एक्चुअली कल हम उसको मार्केट में इंट्रोड्यूस करने वाले हैं। तो थैंक्स टू एसवीपी एंड गिव इंडिया आल्सो।
थैंक यू वेरी मच नीलेश भाई। जस्ट वेरी ब्रीफली अगर आप बिकॉज हमारे पास अभी टाइम नहीं है, तो जस्ट ब्रीफली इफ यू कैन टेल अस कि अगले 5 वर्ष में आपको क्या लगता है कि एसपीपी पार्टनर्स आपको कैसे असिस्ट कर सकेंगे?
एक्चुअली मेरा बहुत ही क्लियर विजन है कि हमने एक मॉडल तैयार किया है कारीगर क्लिनिक के तहत पाभीबेन का। पाभीबेन आज भादरोई गांव में, कच्छ के इंटीरियर भादरोई गांव में 160 महिलाओं को रोजगार दे रहे हैं। तो हमें क्लियर विजन पर हम काम कर रहे हैं कि पाभीबेन जैसे हमें 1000 पाभीबेन तैयार करने हैं भारत के अलग अलग गाँवों में। एक पाभीबेन को इतना सक्षम बनाना है कि वो कम से कम अपने गांव में 100 लोगों को रोजगार दे। तो अल्टीमेटली हमें 1 लाख लाइवलीहुड क्रिएट करने हैं, 1000 पाभीबेन तैयार करने हैं। और उसके लिए आई थिंक एसवीपी का भी ये लॉन्ग टर्म विजन है कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा लाइवलीहुड क्रिएट करें। तो मेरे हिसाब से एक कॉमन विजन पर हम लोग लंबे समय तक एसवीपी के साथ पार्टनर रहे और एसवीपी हर एक फील्ड में, हर एक स्टेज पर हमें सपोर्ट करे और हमारे कॉमन विजन को परिपूर्ण करे।
Thank you very much, Nilesh bhai. Over to you, Alka, and thank you for giving us the time.